Okay, that was a really bad intro. But now we're going to jump into the rest of the first tale. Here we go. This is quite short. Connor whirled around. The parson? Yes, said the monster. I flung his roof into the dell below and knocked down every wall of his house with my fists. The parson's house was still before them, and Connor saw the yew tree next to it awaken into the monster and set ferociously on the parsonage. With the first blow to the roof, the front door flew open, and the parson and his wife fled in terror. They're like, the monster in the scene threw the roof after them, barely missing as they ran. What are you doing? Connor said. The Apatho whatever is the bad guy. Is he? Asked the real monster behind him. There was a crash as the second monster knocked down the parsonage's front wall. Of course he is, Connor shouted. He refused to help heal the parson's daughters, and they died. The parson refused to believe the apothecary could help, said the monster. When times were easy, the parson nearly destroyed the apothecary. But when the going grew tough, he was willing to throw aside his every belief if it would save his daughters. So, Connor said, so would anyone, so would everyone. What did you expect him to do? I expected him to give the apothecary the yew tree when the apothecary first asked. This stopped Connor. There were further crashes from the parsonage as another wall fell. You'd have to let yourself be killed. I'm far more than just one tree, the monster said, but yes, I would have let the yew tree be chopped down. It would have saved the parson's daughters and many, many other besides. But it would have killed the tree that made him rich, Connor yelled. He was evil. He was greedy and rude and bitter, but he was still a healer. The parson's, though, what was he? He was nothing. Belief is half of all healing. Belief in the cure, belief in the future that awaits. And here was the man who lived on belief, who had sacrificed it at the first challenge right when he needed it most. He believed selfishly and fearfully and took the lives of his daughters. Wow, that's so deep, right? He's saying, the monster is saying that this is like a man of religion, or a man who, you could argue this many ways, right? But there's nothing really tactile with that. Your faith is what's leading you, right? That belief. And he's saying that this man didn't really have it, and that's what made his daughters pass away. It's crazy. This is such an interesting story. Connor grew angrier. You said this was a story without tricks. I said this was a story of a man punished for his selfishness, and so it is. Seething. So Connor's like, oh, he's so mad. Connor looked again at the second monster destroying the parsonage. A giant monstrous leg knocked over a staircase with one kick. A giant, monstrous arm swung back and demolished the walls to the parson's bedroom. I'll move my picture real quick. So, wow, look at that. That's it all being destroyed. And remember, it's like a misty kind of dreamlike picture that Connor's watching it happen, right? And then this is him watching it. He's like, what's going on? Tell me, Connor O'Malley, the monster behind him asked, would you like to join in? Join in? Connor said, surprised. It is most satisfying, I assure you. The monster stepped forward, joining its second self and putting a giant foot through his study, not unlike Connor's grandma's. And the monster looked back at Connor, waiting. What shall I destroy next? It asked, stepping over to the second monster. And in a terrible blurring of the eyes, they merged together, making a single monster who was even bigger. What? I await your command, boy, it said. So again, the monster is calling him all these different names, and Connor is not happy. He doesn't like being called all these nicknames, right? Connor could feel the breathing growing heavy again. His heart was racing, and that feverish feeling had come over him once more. He waited a long moment. I want to ask you, what do you think that feverish feeling is that comes over him? What like emotion do you think he feels? Is he maybe like reflecting back to something? Like, what do you think that is for him? So think about that maybe. The monsters, knock over the fireplace. That's what Connor said. He said, knock over the fireplace. The monster's fist immediately lashed out and struck the stone hearth from its foundations, the brick chimney tumbling down on top of it in a loud clatter. Connor's breath still got heavier, like he was the only one doing the destroying. "Throw away their beds," he said. The monster picked up the beds from the 2 roofless bedrooms and flung them into the air so hard they seemed to sail nearly to the horizon before crashing to the ground. "Smash their furniture!" Connor shouted. "Smash everything!" The monster stomped around the interior of the house, crushing every piece of furniture it could find with satisfying crashes and crunches. "Tear the whole thing down!" Connor roared, and the monster roared in return and pounded at the remaining walls, knocking them to the ground. Connor rushed in to help, picking up a fallen branch and smashing through the windows that hadn't already been broken. He was yelling as he did it, so loud he couldn't hear himself think, disappearing into the frenzy of destruction, just mindlessly smashing and smashing and smashing. The monster was right. It was very satisfying. Connor screamed until he was hoarse, smashed until his arms were sore, roared until he was nearly falling down with exhaustion. When he finally stopped, he found the monster watching him quietly from outside the wreckage. Connor panted and leaned on the branch to keep himself balanced. "Now that," said the monster, "is how destruction is properly done." And suddenly, they were back in Connor's grandma's sitting room, and Connor saw that he had destroyed almost every inch of it. So again, the genre is magical realism, right? So it is a fiction story, but there's some magical elements to it. And I know one of our questions that we had as a class was, is the monster a figment of Connor's grief or imagination or his pain? Or is it a real monster? And it's a fiction story, right? So is this like a real monster that's there and we don't know? But I think now we're starting to see, right, that that's kind of blurring. And we see that the monster is kind of just something with Connor. It's in his mind, right? Connor believes it's real. So to Connor, it is real. And I think there's something to be said for that. But here, Connor destroyed his grandma's house, right? So we talk about how he's going through a grieving process. And we've talked about how grief looks differently for different people. And anger is definitely a part of that process, right? You have pain, you have hurt, and you have that physically kept in your body, right? So when you are doing something physical, you are releasing all of those emotions that are held physically in your body. So there is something to be said for, like, it is probably a relief for Connor. We talked also about how he's so isolated. He has no one to confide in, to talk to. People approach him like Miss Kwan or Lily, but he refuses. He shuts those avenues down. So I'm sure it did feel really good for Connor, but now, like any action, he has to deal with the consequences. So we will read in Destruction what happens. So thanks, guys. See you later.